Welcome to the presentation on the framework of a high-performing team. I'm Adam Hooley and I'm from Atmosphere. Before we start, let's talk about what we're going to do for the next 45 minutes. So we're going to talk a little bit about the team itself. Okay, so the team structure and how that's formatted, because that's really important when we go into the framework of a high-performing team. There's some problems we need to solve in the team structure first before we can rock into the team structure or the high-performing team structure. So let's look at what a high-performing team is. What's the benefits of having a high-performing team? If we're going to make this change, if we want to have a high-performing team, there needs to be a reason driving it. So what I've done is I've broken this up into two different columns. The first one is the team column. What are the benefits to the team? Okay, so the first one is we have a happy team. So high-performing teams are generally quite productive. It makes the team themselves more happy. Okay, so as you go down this list, they all interact with each other. So you've got the team are engaged. Because the team's happy, they're also engaged. So they're wanting to come to work and they're engaged with their role and they're wanting to do well. The team are interested in your success. Again, if we jot down this list again, the team are happy, the team are engaged, the team are interested in your success as a principal or a business owner. They actually want to come to work and they want to do well because they want your business to succeed and they want you to succeed, okay, which is really, really important. The culture is aligned. So we do a lot of work around culture, but in this particular case, what we're saying is the team are aligned. They all want to achieve the same thing. They all want the same result, which is, accomplishing the business goal and moving the business forward. So they're all aligned in that culture and achieving that. We also have high staff retention. So in the property management industry, we actually have a very high staff churn, high staff turnover. And that's because often the roles, property management roles, don't differentiate between each other. They're kind of like property managers are property managers. You can't really tell the difference. It's like a lemons market for property managers. So you can't really tell a good property manager from a bad property manager through an interview process. It's quite difficult. So having a high performing or a happy team means that you actually reduce your churn or you increase your retention so that your staff are staying longer and engaging more with your business, offering you a lot more stability. Then we have the business side of it. So we actually have customer retention, which is really, really important. So if you've got a happy, engaging team, you've also got a happy, engaging customer because they're getting the service that they want or the service that they're promised, which means they're more engaged in your business, okay? Having a better retention also increases profit. So there's a couple of other things around increasing profit. You don't have the expenses of recruiting new staff and training new staff all the time. You're not losing business. You're not paying for mistakes. So there's all this other stuff around increasing profit. So it's kind of a big picture thing, but definitely high-performing teams will increase your profit for you. And that also leads to growth. So you've got better service to your customers. That's going to promote growth into your business. Okay, you'll often find that property managers themselves will take on a lot more referral business in a high-performing team because they're doing such a great job. And owners will give them other properties, or owners will refer their property managers or other properties to their property managers from their friends and family. So what you'll find is you actually get growth in the business because the business is doing well. And because you're actually stopping that churn out the bottom of your business of properties, you're actually automatically growing as well. The business becomes a business of choice, okay, and not just to owners, okay? So you don't just have owners coming to your business because they're seeing the quality service that you're now offering from this high-performing team. It actually becomes a business of choice for staff as well, for people that you're recruiting into your business. The word gets around, the industry is very small, and if your business is known as a high-performing business that attracts good quality staff, then people will be banging on your door. So no longer do you have to put up an ad on Seek to recruit a property manager and then spin the bottle on whether that's going to be a great team member or not. Now you have good people banging down your door. So when you're looking for good staff, you have them there and you can choose from them. Another thing is, the most important one, is that you'll always achieve your business goals. Okay, high-performing teams are designed in that exact manner. They're designed to focus on guiding towards a goal and achieving that goal. So if you've got a high-performing team, you've got a much better chance of reaching your goal, your business goal that you've set as a principal or a team leader. So that's really, really important. So they're the benefits of having a high-performing team. What is a high-performing team? So what are the characteristics of a high-performing team? So we've kind of just outlined the benefits of a high-performing team. Now we want to know what the characteristics are of a high-performing team. What are they? Okay, so we've got 7 points down here. The first one is the team has a plan. So it's really, really important as a leader that you put a plan in place for your team. So your team needs some direction. They need a goal or a plan to work towards. Okay, so it's important that you have that plan in place and that plan is shared with the team. The plan can be measured. So again, it's really important if you have a plan to measure the success of that plan, you need to have some sort of KPIs in place and things like that. You need to be able to measure whether you've done well at the plan or whether you've done bad at the plan. Each team member knows their role in the plan. So as an individual, what's my role to contribute towards this plan? Do I know what I'm supposed to be doing for the business to make sure we succeed at our plan? Each team member receives regular feedback on their contribution towards the plan. So it's really important as a team member that I know whether I'm actually doing the right thing. So I've been given some direction, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but am I executing on that correctly or do I need some help with that? Okay. Each team member has a career plan for improvement. So this is really, really important, and it may feel a little bit of out of place in this structure. But if holistically, as a principal, I'm engaging with a team member on their career plans, they're going to better engage with me. So it's really important that I show that. Each team member has the tools to execute the plan. So it's really important that there's some structure put in place so that I can execute that plan. If I've got the tools, the technology, or the systems that I need to execute that plan, then I'm going to be better at it. And the last one is celebrate team wins. This is really, really important. A lot of principals and team leaders look on this as a fluffy thing for their team, okay? But your team are people. They're your biggest asset. They're your people, and you need to invest in them. So what you need to do is celebrate those wins so they feel good about achieving something, okay? So that's what a high-performing team looks like. They're the characteristics of a high-performing team. Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to do the big debate around the portfolio and the task and what we call a squad. Okay, so this debate's been going on for a long time. And when I engage with businesses, the first two questions they ask me is, how many properties can my team manage and what sort of structure should I have? Now, I can't really answer both those questions for you. But what we can do is kind of look at the characteristics of those things and have a look particularly around team structure, what would be beneficial for your business. Okay, so we have the portfolio structure, which you probably all know too well. That's basically a property manager has a portfolio of properties that they measure and look after. Okay, so that's their core role. Now, there are some variations on that. They may have a receptionist or something that helps them type up leases, or they have a leasing consultant that leases properties. There are some variations, but basically the definition is that one single person is responsible for that portfolio of properties. Okay. The second one is a task-based system. It's been around for a long time. It is actually getting less and less popular, but it still exists in many agencies. And that's where you have, maybe you have three people, but they're both working on defined core tasks. None of them overlap. There's no grey areas. So one person might look after maintenance and routine inspections. That's their core job. Another person might look after lease renewals, lettings, and entry condition reports. Another person might look after vacating properties and concerns and problems. So you've got everyone in a defined column of work, and they don't overlap. And there's a lot of problems with that, but the biggest one with that is owner communication. Is we find that owners struggle to understand who they're supposed to be dealing with. And because there's no overlap, you find there's kind of a bit of a disconnect between some of the things happening in the agency. The last one we have is squad. So this is one that I'm actually going to pitch to you today in today's session. So the squad is you have a team of 2 or 3 people. They all work together on a portfolio, so they own the portfolio together. And each of the tasks that they do in conjunction with each other. So if you're doing rent arrears, for example, one person might do a portion of that task, another person might do a portion of that task, and a third person might do a portion of that task. So everybody in the portfolio knows what's going on with every single task. No right or wrong with the structure. It depends on the size of your business and what you're doing. What I've got here now is an org chart for a property management business. So this comes from the book Connecting the Dots that Ben White wrote, and basically identifies 4 key team areas in a property management business. So people always think of a property management business, they think of property managers, and that's all there is. But as you can see in this org chart, it's only one of 12 roles in the property management business. So we have the leadership role, which is the pink triangle at the top. We have the property management role, which is the blue triangle to the left. Then we have the BDM role, which is the green triangle on the right. And then right in the middle, we have the administration triangle, which has your trust accountant and your administrator and your receptionist. Today, what we're going to do is we're only going to focus on the property manager triangle and have a look at that. So let's have a look at some of the issues that we have with managing a team or engaging with a team that this system can help us solve. So recruitment is a really big one. Is that once a property manager leaves, they leave with all the information about that portfolio in their head mostly, okay? And then you've got a new property manager that comes in and they have to re-engage with that portfolio, learn about the owners and learn about the tenants. And that's often a huge issue. You don't know what sort of property manager you're going to get. It's really hard to employ the right property manager just through an interview process. So what we're going to do is use this system to solve that a little bit. And I'll show you a little bit later how. But basically what we do is we recruit from the bottom in this system. So we only ever recruit property associates into the business. So they're unskilled, they're cheap, and we get to mold them in our ways of systems and procedures and things like that. So if a property manager leaves, then we just promote a property associate up into the property manager's role and we recruit a new property associate. If the property management executive leaves, which is the top of that tier, then you recruit the property manager up and the property associate up, and you recruit back in a new property associate in the bottom. So that way the learnings of the portfolio stay with the portfolio and they don't exit with new staff, and it's much easier to put new staff into that team because 2/3 of the team already know what's going on in there. So a lot of that multiplies down through induction, external training, management, sick leave. That a lot of that concept still applies. So when you're inducting someone into this team, they're new to the team. 2/3 of the team knows what's going on. So they get to induct that person slowly into the things that are going on in the environment. The portfolio itself has very little disruption. So the owners will probably barely notice a change of staff. Tenants will barely notice a change of staff. And there'll be no disruption in work during that time. External training is one of the ones that comes up as a key frustration for property managers. And a lot of the property managers I talk to don't like doing external training because they don't like being out of the office. So if they dedicate a day to training, they get back to the office the next day and all they've got is a phone full of phone messages, an email full of emails, and a heap of work that piled up while they were away. Okay, so this system solves that problem because the actual portfolio can continue to run with one person missing out of it, quite successfully actually. And I had an instance where we rolled this system out and one of the actual core property managers decided he wanted to go on leave for a month. And the team kind of panicked and said, what are we going to do? And I said, don't panic, that's what this system's designed to do. So they put a few things away. So for example, they made sure their routine inspections were up to date and things were looking really, really smart for the portfolio before he went on leave. But basically this property manager was away for a month and he came back to a very clean desk and a very organized portfolio because they were able to cope without missing a beat while that property manager was away. So again, with management, and I'll show you, I've got a couple of slides coming up next, how the tier structure works. So if you've got 6 property managers, for example, they all report to you as a principal or a team leader. Okay? If you're using this tiered structure, it's only the PME that's reporting to you. So the PME's job is to influence and train down into that org chart. So it's the PME's job to mentor and train the property manager and the property associate. So they're responsible for those team members and they don't report directly to you. So that relieves the pressure off you. You're no longer training every single person in the agency. You're only training and mentoring the PMEs, the property management executives. So sick leave and holiday cover, that's kind of what we just discussed. Career progression is really, really important. So we're talking about recruitment before. Career progression is exactly the same. It allows a property associate to move into a property manager's role to move into a property management executive role. And back out in the bigger org chart, there are team leader roles as well, business manager roles. So they can continue working up through the business, depending on the size of your business, of course. But if you're just looking at a smaller business, it allows the property manager to progress through the system in a career progression. Cultural alignment. Cultural is a really big one. And a lot of you have culture in your business, but you probably don't realize what it is because you don't actually work on it. But recruiting new people into your business can change the culture quite significantly. And if you've got this kind of environment where you've got one person slipping into a team of 2 others, they then generally adapt to that culture quite quickly. So it helps with the cultural alignment within the company. And this high churn, it removes your staff churn, okay? Because people have a career, people have a job that they enjoy, they're seeing support from the team, they're not having to worry about taking leave and things like that. It solves all these problems that we just went through. So they're both friction problems for the property manager and for the owner or the team leader. So solving this fixes a lot of those and reduces the churn. Staff are happier to stay and stay for longer. Okay, there's a lot more on this in the book Building Blocks by Ben White, so I just kind of wanted to touch on the concept here with you today, just to say we have a structure that we think solves a lot of these problems. So when you're going through what a high-performing team looks like, think seriously about your structure, and does this structure work for you? So this would be a conventional portfolio structure, which is what I was saying before, where every single property manager reports to the principal of the team leader. So that takes a lot of time if you're managing a lot of those staff. So if your business is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I've worked in some business and we're up to 20 staff are reporting to a team leader. So the team leader doesn't have time to work on the business at all. Pretty well their day is just reactively working with property managers. So if we've got a squad structure, like we've sort of suggested here, things progress. So you'll see here, I've got these little arrows that move the property associate to the property manager. The property manager moves to the property manager executive. So if you start on the left side of this graph, you see if you've got one property manager, they can work on their own. Okay, so everyone has to start somewhere. But the next role that you would employ would be a property associate. So you'd put someone under them to support them so that they can then mentor that person, train that person. Okay, and as the portfolio got bigger, then the property manager could then be promoted to the property manager executive. The property associate could then be promoted to the property manager. And then you recruit a new property associate into the business. Okay, so that's the idea of this framework. It kind of manipulates really, really well to offer transition of staff really easy, recruiting of staff really easy, and it really does solve some of those friction problems we've got with forming a team. Righto, so let's rock into the framework. So the framework here is a 7-step framework, and the whole thing interlocks with each other, which is why we call it a framework. One thing doesn't work without the other, or if you take one thing out of this framework, the framework can collapse. Okay, so that's why we call it a framework. So we have 7 steps in here. The first one is we have a business plan. Now you'll notice these 7 steps, we talked about the characteristics of a high-performing team back a few slides ago. These 7 steps actually coincide with those characteristics of a high-performing team. So we have to have a business plan that needs to be in place. So the business leader needs to have a plan for the business. That's the core thing you need to have. If you don't have that, what's your team going to work towards? Okay. The second thing is we need to have key performance indicators. So we need a way of measuring, or KPIs as we call them. You need to be able to measure how successful that plan has been. You then need to have position descriptions for your team. Okay, so it's really important that your team know what to do. So 3, 4, and 5 intergel with each other 2, 3, 4, and 5 intergel with each other very closely. Okay. You then need to have a performance management practice. Okay, and that means that you're actually measuring how your staff are performing. Okay. So to measure how staff's performing, you have to have number 3, position description. You then have to have key performance indicators because you need to be able to measure those to see what the performance is. So you've got a description, then you've got a measurement. So these all tie together. I don't want to get it too confusing for you. We'll go through it one by one later. Number 5 is career check-in. So this one feels like it's a little bit left of the group, but it's really important. It's a holistic look at an individual's career. So as a principal or a team leader, you need to be engaging with your staff and making sure that you understand what they want to do in their career and that you're supporting that. Number 6 is systems and procedures. So that's about providing tools for your team. It's one thing to employ someone, but you need to give them the tools to do the job. And number 7 is reward and recognition. So it's really, really important that you celebrate your wins. Okay, so let's step through those one by one and have a look at them. So the first one is the business plan. So the business plan really needs to be put together by the team leader, but it does need to be shared with the team. There's no point putting it at the principal or the team leader, There's no point putting a business plan together and then throwing it in the drawer. You need to get buy-in from the team. Now, we're not going to go through all these 7 steps. We're not going to go through the lower level of stuff. We're just going to keep it relatively high for today. But basically, a business plan needs to have 3 key components in it. It needs to have ambition. So I've got in here, ambition is a force, okay? So you don't write ambition down on paper, but you need to have ambition as a principle. You need to know what you want to achieve in your business, okay? Which is the second one, which is the vision, or the direction your business is going to go. So you've got a force, or an ambition, or a passion. Then you've got a vision, which means I've got a vision for my bigger business. I want to know where it goes. I want to know what I want to achieve with my business. And then the last thing is you've got a goal, which is a target. So you need to document what I'm going to do. Is it I want to increase my business by 200 properties in the next 12 months? Is it that I want to be the best property management business in the area? So there's a whole lot of goals that would depend on you, but once you make that goal up, it needs to be measurable and you need to share it with your team, okay? The second one is key performance indicators. This one's actually crucial, and that's why I've put it in at step number 2, because you really can't go anywhere else in the business until you've put key performance indicators into your business, okay? So key performance indicators come in 3 different categories for me, and I've put them here right in front of you. So the first one is NPS, which is a customer survey, okay? The Net Promoter Score. It's a structured customer survey. Now, you don't need to use the Net Promoter Score, but you can use a customer survey as long as it's measurable. There's no point surveying clients and just getting comments back, yeah, your service was great, no, your service wasn't, or whatever it is, because you can't measure that, okay? NPS actually gives you a framework on measuring success for your customer delivery, okay? So that's why the only reason I suggest it. But the important thing is that you have a measurable KPI for your customer service. Are you delivering to your customers what you told them you're going to deliver on? The second one is performance. So the performance is around your core KPIs. So that's simple things like rent arrears, lease renewals, vacancy days, days on markets, outstanding tenant invoices, overdue routine inspections. These are all just general performance KPIs for your team. Okay, and they would be down to your individual squads or your individual portfolios. So they're quite important. And the last one is financial. So you've got financial goals for your business. And they could be a variety of goals. So it could be, I want to make this much money out of my business. But the smaller goals might be, what are the areas where you're operating? What's the percentage of your expenses in your business? What's the percentage of your salary? So your salary should be chewing up, between 30-40% of your turnover. So you need to keep an eye on that, put that in as a goal so that you can actually monitor that and stay close to that. So you've got those financial KPIs that you need to put in your business. So they're also very, very important. Number 3 is the position description, okay? So position description is actually really, really important. So if you employ someone into your business, they need to know what their role is. They need to understand what their role is and what they're responsible for doing. So the first one is you've got the role and responsibility. So that's what that's all about. You're giving them something that tells them, okay, you are a property manager. That's your role. Your responsibility is to look after X amount of properties, maintain the customers and the tenants, whatever it is, that's an outline of what your roles or responsibilities are, okay? Then you have your core duties. So the position description needs to outline the core duties, okay? Right down to the lower level task. Okay, you are responsible for renewing leases. You're responsible for doing routine inspections. You're responsible for managing tenant arrears. So this comes down to what your core duties are, okay? And then they need to be measurable, so the performance criteria. So this is slightly different to the KPIs. So the KPIs might be you need to have 90% of leases on fixed terms. That could be a KPI, so that's completely separate. This one here could be things like not only do you have to do an entry condition report, but the entry condition reports need to be on time and they need to be accurate, which means every tenant that moves into a property needs to have one and they need to be accurate. So that could be what the performance criteria is in the position description, slightly different to the KPIs, okay? The routine inspections could be the same. The routine inspections need to be done on time every quarter or whatever the frequency is that you're doing them. They need to have 25 photos attached to them and they need to be sent to the owners within 48 hours of being done. Okay, so they're kind of the performance criteria that go into a position description. The KPIs can go in there, but you would generally disconnect the KPIs. KPIs can change, okay, where the performance criteria probably won't. Number 4 is performance management practices. So this is where you start seeing all these things tied together. So if you want to do a performance management on a property manager or any staff member in your business for that matter, then you need to be able to measure it against 2 things. You need to be able to measure it against their position description. So how can you say if they're not doing their job if you haven't given them a list of the tasks they need to do? So that's really, really important. And then going back to the key performance indicators, how can you performance manage someone if you haven't given them key performance indicators? So how can you say you're not doing your arrears properly if you haven't told them what level arrears needs to be? So a lot of officers work on 2% as an acceptable arrears level. So if I'm working on 3%, you can't come to me as a property manager and say you're not doing your arrears, you're outside, what our business practice is, but if you haven't told me what that business practice is. Okay, so that's really important that you have those 2 things in. So 2 and 3 are really dependent on doing number 4. Okay, so number 4 here is about performance, feedback, and identifying training. So performance management practices isn't about just managing underperforming staff, because this is what a lot of people think. A lot of people think performance management is just about managing underperforming staff. Now that's kind of quite true, but there's a lot more to it. You should be doing performance management on every staff member in the business, and regularly. I would suggest that at least once a month you're reviewing it. So you're looking at the performance. So you're going back and doing what I said before. You're looking at the position description. You're looking at the KPIs. How is that person performing? Okay, and analysing that. The second step is you need to provide feedback, whether it be positive or negative. It doesn't really matter as long as you're giving it, okay? If it's positive feedback, somebody's doing the right job, they're meeting their KPIs, they're meeting everything in their position description, doing what's required of them. You need to let them know that, okay? They are your team, they're people, and they need to be encouraged, and they need to be recognised. So you need to actually tell them if they're doing a good job. You need to give them that feedback. Likewise, if it's negative, if they're not achieving what they need to achieve, you need to portray that to them. You need to say, listen, you're not meeting these requirements. But one thing you need to be very, very cautious about when you're doing performance management practices is, as a team leader or a principal, you need to take responsibility for this, okay? If somebody is doing poorly at arrears management, number one is not to blame that staff member for doing poorly at arrears management. Number one is to ask yourself, have I trained that person and given them the right tools to do that job properly? That's the first question you always ask, okay? So people always go straight to the staff member and say, well, you're not doing arrears properly. You need to fix that, okay? The first problem is, have I, as a principal or a team leader, trained that person to do the arrears effectively? And if that's not the case, then you've got number 3 here on the screen, which is identify training. So you need to identify a training program for the team. So one of these things that's really, really important is that you can see trends. If you're measuring the whole team, you can see trends through the team. For example, if you've worked in an area, and there's been plenty of these areas in Queensland, and mining towns are probably one of those, where they've never had vacant properties. Properties just rent all the time. There's never been vacant properties. So they've had property managers that have worked for years and never had to worry about a vacant property. As soon as it comes vacant, they've got 20 people wanting to rent it the next time. So what I've seen, what we've seen, definitely what I've seen is, in some of those areas, what happened is we've had a decline in the market and properties are starting to fall vacant. And you're seeing rents that are reducing $100, $200 in some instances. And property managers don't know how to manage that. They've never had to before. So what you're seeing is these really extended days on market. So now we have a training problem in the business where we need to train property managers how to assess days on market, how to get price reductions from the owner, do proper market comparisons, and pitch these all to the owner so they can get the property rented or the days on market reduced and create income for the owner. So these things are kind of really, really important. It's not necessarily always the property manager or the staff member's fault if they're not performing. We need to make sure that we've given them the tools to do the job. Number 5 is career check-ins. So this one's a holistic view. So why it's not critical on these other steps, it's a holistic view over the whole process. So as a team leader, you have a responsibility to look after your staff member's career, okay? Now obviously they do too. They need to turn up to work and they're going to want to achieve things. But you are the deciding factor. It's you that decides how well they're going to do in their career, okay? So you need to engage in that process. Number 1 here is be interested and ask, okay? People aren't going to just blurt out to you what their career aspirations are, particularly if it doesn't involve you. And you need to be really, really conscious of that, because sometimes a career aspiration for your staff member doesn't involve staying in your business, and that's okay. I'm a perfect example of that. Here I am giving you a lecture now on how high-performing team works, okay? I was very clear back in my days as a property manager that I never wanted to be a property manager forever. I wanted to learn stuff and I wanted to move on and do bigger things. And my principals supported that. They knew that my time in the agency was limited, and they made the most of that while they could. And then when it was time to move on, they made sure that I had the right path in place to do that. So it's really, really important that you be interested and you engage in your staff member's career. Invest in it, both financially and mentally, okay? So that's really, really important. If a staff member comes to you and wants training, invest in it. Training is never a waste of money, okay? Obviously, they want to go and learn how to flip beers and make cocktails. That's probably not in the best interest of the business, depending on how many parties you have. But if they want to go and say, listen, I want to go and do a management course or a team leader course or a time management course or something like that, if they've come to you and asked for that, then I would give it to them and I would support them. So if that financially costs you money, that's great. So mentally and financially invest in their career future for them. Now, the third thing I've got in here is document a path. So to me, one of the critical things about career check-ins is you need to document it, okay? It's like any goal in life. If you don't write it down and you don't tell people about it, how's it going to happen, okay? So document a career path. Now, career check-ins should be done probably at least once a month, similar to your performance check-ins, and they could be done around about the same times. They do have a different feel to them, so often it's kind of easier to do them at a different time. Performance management could be a little bit more regimented, where career check-ins is definitely more of a casual engagement type thing where you're showing more of a personal interest in the team member. So up to you, you can do them together or you can do them separately, but they definitely need to be done as part of the process, okay? If you're engaging with your team members are engaging with you. Really, really important. So number 6 is systems and procedures. This is a biggie, this one. So this is about giving your team the tools to do the job. So the thing about systems and procedures, there's a lot of principals think that we have this concept called a silver bullet. So what they think is the team wants systems and procedures, or they think the team needs systems and procedures, and they go and buy a procedure manual off the shelf. And what they do is they hand that out to the team, and the team go, yay, I've got a system manual. Well, no one ever uses it. No one engages with it. It just sits there and collects dust, okay? So if you want to buy a procedure manual as a principal or a team leader, then by all means, you've got my full encouragement to go and buy one. But that for you is your textbook. That's your guide to building a procedure manual. That is not your procedure manual, okay? That's for you to study and pull apart so you can drive the team in the next step. So the next step is to build the procedure manual as a team. So what I recommend with agencies that I'm engaging with is that you pull one procedure every week and you put it into your staff member. So completely segue from this, you should be having weekly team meetings. But what you should be doing is you should be segregating out some time, so half an hour for each team meeting, to build out one process, okay? Now, they don't need to be detailed. In fact, procedure manuals, in my experience, work better if they're at a higher level. If they're just at dot point form, okay, people will engage with them a lot better. So spend half an hour going through and jotting out a new procedure every week. If there's 26 procedures, that's fine. It takes 26 weeks to pull it together. But once you've got that procedure manual together, you've then got your team engaging with it because they built it, okay? You can direct it, you can kind of oversee it and make sure that they're putting the things in that you want. But by all means, by necessity, they need to actually contribute to building it, okay? It's really, really important. Once you've built it and you've got it engaged, you need to update it regularly. So for example, if it took 26 weeks to build it, don't stop on week 27. On week 27, go back to the first procedure guide you built 26 weeks ago and review it. I would be very surprised if after 26 weeks there weren't changes that need to be made in that procedure manual. Legislation changes, your team practices change, the owners change on what they're wanting, what their requirements are. So a lot of stuff's changing in the business. So I'd be very surprised if you could go for 26 weeks without changing your procedure. So the good thing about that also is after 26 weeks, you may have new staff. So it's about re-engaging the staff into these procedures as well. So go back and redo them. So once you've finished it, go back and redo it and regularly update it, okay? Now the third one here is support its inception. Now this one is really, really important, okay? So you've got 3 major steps here. You've got implementing the procedure manual, you've got reviewing the procedure manual, and then you've got using the procedure manual. So by supporting its inception, there's 2 major things you need to do. As a team leader or a principal, you need to embed that into the business. So the best way to do that is to be very upfront with your team, okay? And say to them, if something goes horribly wrong in the business and it financially costs us lots of money and you lose a couple of managements or whatever it is, as long as you have followed the procedure manual, it means that whatever happened is beyond your control, okay? And you have my full support as a principal or team leader. However, if something happens and you didn't follow the procedure guide, then you will bear the consequences of whatever has happened, okay? And you make that very clear. Now, you make that very clear and very open to the team in a supportive way, okay? Don't do it after a mistake has happened, okay? Because then it feels like discipline, okay? You don't want it to be discipline. You kind of want it to be something that they aspire to. So you kind of want to pitch it to the team in a more friendly manner. The other thing is you need to empower team members to keep an eye on their colleagues, okay? So if one colleague sees another colleague that's not doing the right thing and not adhering to the systems and procedures that you put together as a team, then they need to be empowered to bring that up, either to say to that team member, hey, you're not doing this correctly, this is how you're supposed to do it, or they need to be empowered to go to another senior member in the business and say, hey, my team member is not doing the right procedure. Can we fix that, or how do we fix that? Okay, so support its inception, embed it into your business. Once you've created, if you put it on the shelf, it's just going to be like that one you bought that's collecting dust. So number 7 is rewards and recognition. So this one is also quite important, and this is sitting on the tail end for a very good reason. Is once you've ticked all these boxes and you've been through all these steps of a high-performing team, you need to celebrate your wins, okay? So a lot of principals that I talk to go, oh, that's all fluffy, I don't want to do that. It is fluffy. Your team are your biggest investment. You're spending up to 40% of your turnover on your team, okay? They are people, they have feelings, and they want to be recognized when they do well, okay? So it's really, really important that you have a rewards and recognition program. So I've got here Ring the Bell. This is a concept that's been around for a long time. And it doesn't literally mean you have to ring a bell, although many businesses I've been into have actually bought a bell and put it in there so they can ring it when they do big wins. But celebrate your wins, okay? So if you have a goal, so if you've got an arrears problem, for example, and you've got a goal to get your arrears down to 2% or whatever it is for your agency, if you get to 2%, celebrate it. Now, don't celebrate it by just sending an email saying, hey, or don't celebrate it by bringing it up in a staff meeting. Celebrate it big. Buy the whole staff cupcake, shout them lunch, give them the afternoon off, celebrate that win big time, okay? So they know that you realize that they've achieved something and you've acknowledged it, okay? That's really, really important. The other thing is to have a rewards day. So that's kind of more important for the individual staff. So individuals that are meeting their KPIs and doing well in their businesses, okay? So once a month, again, around the staff meeting, you might have, once a month, an actual reward ceremony where you go through and give these rewards out. Don't underestimate, over the years, you've had these feel-good awards like, best and fairest or most improved. You often see them on the sports field, and that kind of people go, oh, they take awards, you got the best and fairest or whatever it is. The people that receive those awards love them. So it's really, really important, because sometimes you will have staff that have been underperforming and have really engaged in bettering themselves and learning more and building up their KPIs. Now, they're going to be sometimes following quite a long way behind those people that have met KPIs and are winning all these awards. So you need to reward those people that are coming down the lower end of the ranks but are definitely showing improvement, okay? Now, often you need to recognize with added responsibility. So if people are doing well in the business, it's not always convenient to promote them. You don't always have a position for them to go into, or you can't regularly promote them every time they do something well. But a good way of doing it is adding responsibility to their role. So one of the key things that you might do is say, hey, every time a new staff member comes to the business, I want you to induct them. Now, that may feel like a cop-out. It may feel like, oh, I'm giving you an extra responsibility. But what you're actually saying to that staff member is that I trust that you have a really good handle on the culture in the business, okay? And people respect you in the business, and you understand our systems and procedures and how we run. So I'm entrusting you with the process of inducting new team members because I think that you are the most important person in the business for that. So by adding that extra responsibility to the team feels recognized, okay, that I've been doing well as a property manager or a team member, and I've been given extra responsibility. We also push this thing called champions. So they might be a champion, a software champion, or a task champion. For example, if you're really good at arrears, you might become the arrears champion. So that's an extra responsibility. So anytime anyone in the office is having trouble with arrears or needs training in arrears, that person might be responsible for doing that. So again, while it feels like a cop-out and just increasing their task, what you're actually doing is demonstrating to that person that you value them and you value their contribution to the business. And what you're going to do is give them the task of making sure everyone else is as good as them in the business, okay? Same with technology. Maybe you're using technology and someone's really, really good at this technology. They kind of know more of the system than anyone else. Okay, and if these people are doing well and performing well, you want to reward them with some extra responsibilities. You might make them the technology champion. So anyone that needs training on that technology or whatever it is, and I often see in offices that there's property managers getting up at staff meetings and doing 10 and 15-minute training sessions on varying things because these people are the champions of that particular area in the business. Okay? Really, really, really important. Righto, so let's go through and do a quick review on this. So what we've got is number 1 is a business plan. It's really, really important as a principle that you have a business plan in place and you share it with your team. The best place to do this is often off-site. Take a day off-site every quarter. Corporate world has been doing this for a long time and everyone sees value in having off-site days, okay? There are property management businesses that are doing it and a lot of businesses that I engage with are doing it as well. Employ a temp to come and answer the phones for the day. Make sure there's nothing urgent outstanding. Take your team off-site and spend the day and share with them the goal of the business and how you plan on getting there, okay? It's really, really important. Key performance indicators. Make sure you have an array of them, okay? Just having arrears, everyone has arrears, just having arrears is not enough. Having 5 of them is probably not enough. You really need to have at least 10 KPIs in your business so that you can measure your business effectively, okay? And your team should be reporting those KPIs on a weekly basis at the minimum, okay? And you should be plotting those KPIs so you can see the trends. Position descriptions. Everyone in your team needs to have a position description. So you saw briefly the org chart we had before where there's 12 roles in the team, okay? Each one of those roles should have its own position description. You just don't have one position description you draw and you just hand it out to everyone. The position description needs to be tailored to that particular person and that particular position. There is no point going back during the performance management stage, which is the next stage, and saying you haven't done something on this position description when it's actually not part of their role. Or you haven't put it in the position description, which is even worse. Okay? So number 4, performance management. Remember that falls really closely aligned to 2 and 3. You can't really do performance management if you don't have KPIs and you don't have position descriptions, okay? But performance management is really, really important. It's a feedback process for either telling people they're doing well or identifying training needs. Now, in worst case scenarios, performance management is about exiting people from the business. So there are some relations laws against, dismissing people from the business. If you run through this performance management system and you have documented that a staff member is not performing, if you have to terminate that, you will never have any problems or any repercussions with unfair dismissal. Okay. Number 5, career check-ins. Remember, this is the big fluffy one about showing an interest in your staff or your team members' career, okay? Really invest in that and make sure that you know what they want to achieve, okay? You should have a personal interest in every single team member that you work with. And remember, it is your job to make sure they succeed, okay? And they achieve their goals. Systems and procedures, that's a biggie. I can't really employ to you enough how big that one is. You really need to have dedicated system procedures in your office, and the team need to be engaged with them and they need to live them, okay? I would have to say, just loosely, this isn't a survey, but I would have to say loosely 90% of the offices I go into or that I work with don't have a documented system and procedures, okay? And the last one is rewards and recognition. Again, very, very important. If you want a high-performing team to continue performing, you need to reward them. And that's just a process. It's like filling them up with fuel. Okay, they're not going to perform forever if nobody actually comes back and tells them that they're performing. Okay, if you tell them they're performing and tell them that they're doing well, they will continue to do well. So that's all I've got for you today. So a lot of that information has come out of this book, The Building Blocks by Ben White. And if anyone wants a copy of that, you could email me at adam@halo.io and I will post you out a copy of that book. They're free. You can also download a copy from Amazon. Actually, you can buy a copy from Amazon, or you can actually download a copy free from the ebook store. That's all I've got for you for today. Thanks.